Epic Dev Podcast, tech products that work.
Welcome yet again to the Epic Dev Podcast, where we speak everything digital. And today we've got some interesting topics to speak about. I'm going to fire off with some hot off the press news in business and tech in South Africa. And once again, I'm reading off of the open letter. If you're not subscribed, I suggest you go and subscribe, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a tech entrepreneur. It's free. And the hot little bit of news that we've got here today that I find interesting is that they say everyone is a direct marketer now. And therefore, you should be aware of the fact that SA's new spam call rules took effect on 15 April, kind of quietly and with no transition period. And if you cold call, cold email, SMS, local consumers, and all of that fancy stuff, these new rules will bind you. And that means registering on the NCC's Central Opt-out Registry for 2,574 Rand and committing to cleansing your database monthly. And penalties run to 1 million Rand or 10% of turnover, whichever is higher. So that's some serious stuff, guys. I'm not sure if all of the smaller businesses, small to medium businesses are going to fall in the trap of the cold calling, but I see a lot of people cold email without really being aware of the rules. So just be careful. I think over to our topic that we're going to discuss, AI. Is it good or is it bad? Spoiler alert, it's terrible. No, I'm joking.
It's yet to take your job.
No. So one thing that I recently came across, we're integrating with third-party software. And the person that is the agent for the third-party software, I'm assuming it's either a small business or just a guy doing his own thing by himself. So quite cleverly, he set up a AI bot for himself. And it occurred to me that the responses I was getting read like it really did come from like it was very apparent to me that these are AI bot responses. I'm not sure whether the AI bot was responding directly because the messages were being sent to me from the client. So I'm not sure if he integrated it into his business WhatsApp and it was literally an AI responding, or perhaps he was querying, which I often see a lot as well, querying an AI with the queries that we gave him via the client. Either way, the point I'm trying to make is that it was a little, I don't know, for me it was a bit unnerving and irritating because it does not, especially for someone that's been using AI for quite a while now, which I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that are in a similar boat, it's not hard to tell the difference between a human responding to you and an AI bot's response. And it just feels extremely impersonal. I don't know if that's just a me thing. You guys can, comment, post your thoughts in the comments section and let us know how you feel. But for me, it feels extremely impersonal. And that makes me wonder, businesses that are taking AI to that kind of level that lets the AI respond to their clients, are you thinking of the fact, or are you aware of the fact that it might feel very impersonal to some of the clients or prospective clients that you're discussing or chatting to or communicating with? I just think that it's something that we should take into account. Personally, I feel that in the coming 5 to 10 years, the winners are going to be the ones that are utilizing AI to increase productivity and value output. But when it comes to dealing with clients, they're going to do their utmost best to have a human connection with their clients. So I'm almost trying to say like there's a bit of an offset. So it's like you are now saving time because your AI is helping you with production type stuff. But marketing and sales wise, maybe even not marketing, but like the face of the company and the communication layer of the company is as human as it can get. Like you're actually making an asserted effort for that to be almost overly human. Think like those small e-commerce businesses that have a handwritten note in the parcel when you receive it. Think like that. Okay, that I think is going to be the winner. So if someone's reaching out to you and want to talk to you, it has to be human crafted, whether that's a chat app on your mobile app or on your website, or someone sent you an email, or you've got WhatsApp Business and you communicate there. It needs to be human centric.
As you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, there's a department that a lot of people don't like in their companies. It's called the HR department. Now, that's obviously sort of larger businesses, but I'm just thinking ahead, and I'm wondering, at some point, are we going to see HR departments, human relations? Are we going to see an increase of people who are getting hired specifically with a focus on human relationship building? But I'm just wondering if there's something in that where you're going to see this new kind of occupation arise, where it's like, hey, we've got this whole automated beast running and there's AI agents doing all sorts of things, but we need a guy who can talk to people and who can build relationship with people.
HR is generally internal affairs, right, for
sure.
companies. So it kind of put this image in my head of this dystopian future where you're trying to explain to a robot that you're just feeling a little queasy and you don't, you need, and your mother is in hospital and you're feeling queasy and you just don't really have what it takes right now to give the 8 hours that it's clocking on the, the productivity. We don't have like time clockers anymore. We've literally got productivity clockers on computers that are monitoring whether you're actually working or not, and cameras that are looking at you whether you're at your desk. And I know there's also this thing now where some of these grocery stores, the people at the till, there's a camera on them to see whether they're smiling at the customers and how they're talking to the customers and all of these things. Anyway, wow, I'm going down a deep hole here. And but I hadn't actually thought of that there's the internal side of it as well. I'm sort of more thinking of the external, the face of the company, the communication layer. But I think there's a good point to be made there that I think internally for staff retention, I would also say that the winners are going to be the ones that are focusing on the human touch and the human connection. Because at the end of the day, I think that's how we add value to things, Things like me doing business with you, me paying you for a service, or me getting a product from you, or even me working for you, selling my time to you, right? We don't really add value the same way that I think the executives are going to try add value to the shareholders. We add value in terms of how do you treat me, like if I'm dating someone and we're getting engaged, or I want to think of getting engaged, and like a lot of it's going to be like, how do we treat each other? I think we just shouldn't lose sight of that, I guess. The larger point that I'm trying to drive home is AI is great if you're going to use it in ways that's going to add value in terms of speeding things up, refining things. I'm thinking more production layer, not so much communication layer.
When you really start digging into the depths of the trenches when it comes to customer relations, you find that it's actually really difficult because it always comes down to one thing. The customer wants to speak to a person and wants to be understood. I don't know what else to say. Like, if you want good customer relations, let your customer speak to a good person, and that person needs to understand your customer. Done.
And be invested in the relationship.
For sure.
Yeah, so there's something came to mind. There's like I don't know if it's an old saying or something that I just sort of have been bringing along with me over the years. But I've noticed that what are sometimes the biggest symptoms when you start feeling like a brand is growing, but it's starting to lose the plot? Generally, the bean counters have taken over the show. The bean counters or the suits. And so that's a very dangerous thing, I would think, because I think if you are focusing more on the relationship with the customer or the client, then the good stuff's going to come from that. And I've seen a lot of companies that have started out like that and made a real great success, but then starts losing the plot when it becomes bigger, because they get some serious people coming in, perhaps from they've previously worked at corporates, and they come in and say, okay, no, look, you're going to need better corporate governance, and that means that we're going to need to take cash flow a lot more seriously. And perhaps some shareholders have bought in, and now we're going to need to make sure that the shareholders are taken care of, that they get return on their investment. And there's things that we're going to shake things up, and we're going to change things for the better, but it's actually losing the plot, because it's losing the soul of the business that it was built upon, and the reason why it broke through and became successful. And remember, it's not a small feat for a small business to take off and become successful. I think 80% of startups fail within the first, don't quote me on this, but it's something ridiculous, like 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years, 80%. Sure. Okay. And I think the margin is even smaller when it comes to those that break through and become like medium-sized enterprises and larger. I think it's a very thin margin, like 10%, 5% maybe even. So it's a good thing. So obviously they did something right in order to break through, right? Mm-hmm. Because that glass ceiling is not easy to break through. So don't lose sight of that. And bringing us back to the topic, I feel like AI is the new kid on the block, and he's the cool kid, and everyone wants to be friends with him. And everyone's going, well, I also need to get in on this. What is it I'm going to do? And now the mistake you make is focusing on your bottom line, like you said earlier. That's like where my focus is always at. So that means I can use AI to improve my bottom line. That is where I feel the big mistake gets made. And I'm seeing it a lot. Because the first thing, like, okay, I feel for you if you're a call center, for example, because I know the competition is steep. So you're almost in a position that if you don't go in this direction, you're going to lose. I don't have the answers for you, man. I'm not a call center specialist, but I'm going to spitball and say something like, perhaps focus on a little bit more of a niche and punt to the type of clients that would think similarly, I guess, maybe, I don't know, that human interaction is going to be the new big deal that's going to take over the market. There might not be a lot of guys out there that are going to agree with you, but if you're focusing on a small niche, start it as a side project. Focus on a small niche, try and see if you can get a couple of clients on board, and just take a look there, like almost like a little separate piggy bank that you got going in your organization. And then see and start doing sort of A/B testing vibes between the twos. Like, I'm running here and we're pushing AI and whatever, like everyone else is doing in my competition sphere. But I've got this little niche that I'm growing over here that I'm just, in the lab, and I want to see how it grows. I would put money on that little experiment growing more than what you think it would in the next 5 to 10 years. That's my opinion.
I feel like it's very easy to get sucked into a trap where, as you're engaging with this AI, you get sucked into a world that seems to be able to be possible without anybody else, and without, basically, you get into this rhythm of like asking the AI to do this and do that and do that and do that, and the AI is obviously very agreeable, so it's like, yes, this is possible, yes, this is fantastic, yes, this is great. Sometimes to the point where if you snap out of it a little bit and you think, hang on, maybe it's not as important as what Mr. AI has been saying. So
first of all, I think using the AI a lot is actually a good thing, ironically, because it's going to disappoint you. And I think therein lies the learning curve. If you use it often enough, by now, or if you have been using it fairly regularly, and I'm not just talking about personal stuff like what can I cook tonight or whatever, I'm talking business related stuff. Like, you've actually gone through the painstaking process of trying to implement it into your business in a way that it's going to be helpful and help you output more value or something like that. Okay. But you're the one working with it and doing that, then that's going to be a good thing for you because it is going to disappoint you. And that's a great thing because that's where you're going to learn about what these things, what this thing's limitations are, where it can add value and where it can't. And I think it won't take you very long to realize that there are consequences to, is the word grandizing over, like putting it on too high of a pedestal, because you lose sight of the ultimate purpose, which is for it to add value. And if it hallucinates and the output is a hot mess, that's not adding value. So you then realize, oh, okay, well, I can use this thing, but I better monitor it very closely. And that's a good thing, you know. So I think part of the problem is that there's a lot of execs out there that are getting high on the idea of AI and the buzzword, but they don't really have enough practical knowledge with and experience with this tool to understand the good and the bad. And so they're kind of barking from the top down and saying how it needs to be implemented, and perhaps maybe not listening to the people that are actually doing the implementation, that are actually doing the work alongside it, which that's nothing new, is it? That's not a new thing. That's not a new problem for a business or a company where you're not actually focusing and listening to the guy on the production floor. I think now it's even more important because it's not just a machine that's not going to run, you know, as per the Industrial Revolution. If we don't stop production every month and service the machine, it's going to break. And then we're going to have an even bigger problem. We'll have to stop for 3 weeks just to get the thing running again. Okay, cool, I understand that. This is now going another level where it's like, oh, but this thing can actually tarnish the entire brand, because it can start speaking to your clients and promising things that we can't do. And next thing, all the customers are coming back and saying, yes, but this is what you promised me. And next thing you know, wow, I'm in deeper trouble now. I might have to shut my business down, as opposed to the problem previously be fix the thing in 2 or 3 weeks' time. It's a different type of problem now. So it's even more important now to actually focus on what this thing is capable of doing in terms of the negative things. So I would say there's a couple of things you're going to make sure, okay? You got to make sure that you've got guardrails in place. You got to make sure that if you're not the one that's hands-on with this thing, then listen to someone that is hands-on. Listen to a few people perhaps that are hands-on and sort of make your conclusions or derive your conclusions from there. And and this is probably the most important point, have a very honest and methodical, I want to say almost manual way to measure the value of the output and be honest with yourself. So, and also in little milestones. So for example, if you disagree with me and you say, no, AI is going to be the new communicator and that's what we need to do, we need to go in that direction, fine, I disagree, but fine. Then do it in a way that if you currently have people that are that makes up your communication layer, then I would suggest bring an AI bot in just as another seat. So you've got, let's say hypothetically, you've got your 5 people that are communicating. Just bring in a 6th person, which is AI, and then measure constantly. Not just speed and, it's getting things done faster and it doesn't cost me as much. Come on, you're better than that. Dig a little bit deeper. What's the customer satisfaction like?
Yeah.
Because you might actually end up realizing that this is going to cost you a lot more in the long run than it's going to save you. And then make an informed decision real quick. My guess is you're going to boot the thing. But I'm biased. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people have seen, it's like a meme or like an image that does its rounds of a photo of like a World War II aeroplane or something, with a bunch of bullet holes in it. And then it's this whole thing about survivorship bias, where all the planes that kept coming back to the airport had holes in these places. And then they discovered, hang on, these are the ones that survived. And so learning from them isn't really helping us. We've got to learn from the ones who didn't survive and fix that. And I think businesses actually suffer a lot of survivorship bias. And I don't necessarily know what the answer is, but we're always getting feedback from our customers. But these are the people who have made it into our funnel. And I fear that that's part of the problem you're going to experience if you use AI, is you're going to suffer a bit of survivorship bias. There's going to be a few people who make it through and they're going to be like, this was great, this was cool. And you're going to be like, yay. But there's like a row of people who just ditched as quickly as they possibly could, you know?
There are other ways too. Like there are support chats with third parties, suppliers of mine that I have to go through the loops, and the bot will kind of come up and give me this multiple choice thing. And to be honest, once I've gone through those 4 or 5 steps, the human interaction it never really takes long for a human being to then start discussing the thing, and he or she already has all of that information. You know, I'm so happy with that because I can see the value in that as the consumer. On that end, you've taken all the information that you required from me to speed this process up for yourself and for me. So perfect. As opposed to others where the conversation sort of just starts off and you immediately get this idea of like, oh, this bot wants to talk to me. Like it's not just gathering information. Like it actually thinks it's going to last. Like, I don't know if you can be racist towards a robot, maybe in the future, but like it's like, no, this is not going to happen. And I wonder if people can measure, like sites like those, can they measure how often and how soon someone goes, I want to speak to a human being, please? Because that is my knee-jerk reaction to that. As soon as I see that this thing's not just gathering data to put me through to a human and actually wants to start speaking to me as though it's going to solve my problems for me, I go, no. I lie, actually, because sometimes I'll prod at it a little bit and see what kind of information I can get out of it and see how clever this thing is. And I think it's like maybe once or twice, and I can go, nah, you're not going to cut it, dude. Like, put me in touch with a human. Yeah. I wonder if they can do some, if they can add that to their analytics or something, you know, to see how often people just ask for a human. And even that, then, when you're prompting it, let me speak to a human, you're kind of waiting to see what this thing's going to do, you know. Is it going to put me through? Or is it going to try and act like a human? Or is it going to be like, no, hang on, I can help you? And that,
I am a human. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. If it pushes back, wow, my respect for the company is going to drop through the floor, man. Like, it mustn't push back. A human better come along real quick. Otherwise, that's going to be a drop-off, man. And you've lost potentially a huge sale, or who knows. I think when it comes to that, there has to be this, like, we got to all agree. It has to be this, like, universal agreement that it's over. Move on.
But I think therein also lies a bit of the conversation of like the psychology of the thing, because it can very quickly happen that you expect everybody you speak to understand it and know it the way you do. And then that could actually impact your implementation of the thing in software you build. I'm not saying you are guilty of this, but I'm saying I can see that happen. I can see how you build an AI bot into a thing and think, people are going to get frustrated and ask for a human, and then I'm going to send them a human. But you're going to get this layer of users who just are more and more oblivious to the fact that this is AI.
I don't know if I see it that way, because your younger demographic, like your Gen Zs, are now not very far from becoming the majority with the buying power in the market, right? And I think they're quite clever. There's something that is very interesting that is happening in that generation. They really don't like AI, man. I don't know if you've been
sure.
paying attention, but they don't like it. A little bit hypocritical though, because I think they do like it when it comes to being given an assignment by the teacher or the professor to do, and then AI comes in handy, right? So I think they got a little bit of a complex relationship with it, but one thing's for sure, they are hyper aware of this thing and how this thing acts, so they might decide whether they like it or not at the time, or whether they can make use of this thing. So I'll give you an example. Like, there's a project that we've just recently integrated an AI bot for, but I mean, I'll be honest, there's an exploratory phase to a project before you start the project when it comes to the bigger software development projects. And within that phase, if the client is asking us to integrate an AI bot for something that I don't necessarily agree is going to add value, then I will make it known. In this case, what we did was we integrated an AI bot to basically be a second option to using an old, now you can refer to it as an old school search bar. Or category drop down, so I think that's just going to depend on what the user prefers, because there's a search bar over there and you can type in your keyword and your results are going to come up. Or you can click on the bot and you can say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, specifically this, specifically that, and your results are going to come up. I think that's perfect. Ultimately, if the choice is there for your users, then that's a good thing. Your users are going to decide which direction they want to go, how they prefer to use this application, the old manual process or the new, let me just chat to it, a bot. And the assignment is narrow and it makes sense, the purpose of the bot. So that keeps it relatively straightforward and easy. It's kind of a no-brainer. But to come back to your question that you raised, I don't know if the chasm is going to get bigger. I think maybe just the amount of people that adopt it and are okay with using the thing for what it's there for, compared to those that don't want to touch it, yes, I would imagine the divide would become huge. Those Gen Z guys are going to grow up into the market and they're going to start realizing, look, there are things that it's useful for. And if we as a human race, which is the whole point I'm trying to make in this discussion, right? If you're going to continue to use it where it can add value and you're quite determined to only plug it into those applications that it's going to be good for and keep it away from the parts where it either irritates people or it's not that great, then I think you're going to be fine. But that also, which I guess is the more difficult thing to discuss, is that it also very largely depends on how good this thing is going to become, which is what you touched on, right? The singularity. Personally, I don't see that. I don't see the singularity. I don't know if the guys that are developing AI are talking about that and trying to make us think that that's going to happen because they just want more people to buy shares so that they can line their pockets. Or are they seeing something we're not seeing? Once again, I'll come back to the very first point I made. Use it. Actively use it. Like in a real way. I'm not talking about asking for suggestions and recipes and directions and whatever. I'm talking about for practical purposes in like a business setting. It's not going to take you long to see how that thing can disappoint you. Once again, that's a good thing, That's where you're going to start learning.